Well, hello and welcome there, amazing students. Dr. J here. Great to have you here. And here we go. Week number 6. And so if you think the class has been challenging thus far, I got news for you. It's going to go up a little bit higher this week as we turn up the intensity, because this week we are going to be completing and developing project 1 with project number 2 1 week away. So again, make sure that you're up on top of your coursework this week. Do your best to get things done as aggressively as possible. If you're behind on anything, please make sure to get caught up really ASAP, gang. It's all to your best interest because there's a lot to do this week and next week. So you really want to make sure that you stay on top of your coursework. Now, on a side note to that, I'll just share with you a little personal insight. I am currently in Washington, D.C. as I present this. I'm doing some lecture work up here in addition to taking some time to visit some things in the nation's capital, including a plan to go out and see the National Zoo today after I make this video. And along the way, I've run into a few challenges and I'm having to overcome those challenges along the way. And so it gets a little frustrating. I know we all experience this from time to time, but it's important that you just persevere and keep going. And the best defense that I can always share with students is to do things in advance of deadlines. Don't wait until the last minute before you get started on things, because it's usually going to result in failure. You might get away with it working right up to that deadline, starting your assignments at 5, 6 o'clock at night on Sunday before a deadline might work for you sometimes, but I guarantee at some point it will result in disaster. And unfortunately, sometimes those disastrous results could have a big impact. And so keep that in mind as you work through the submissions this week. Again, get caught up if you're behind. Get aggressive this week. Be active in the class and coursework. We don't have a discussion post this week. Thank goodness, right? There's enough going on. So make sure you're putting the time and energy into your submissions. And again, that time you might normally use Thursday night for discussion post, hopefully Wednesday night, those of you who are listening, put that time into one of your submissions instead of putting things off until the weekend. You'll be happy you did. So we're going to talk about stressors and coping mechanisms this week, in addition to a few other things. And so a lot of this is going to play into how students handle the stressors and things they have to accomplish in the classroom. And so here we go. Let's dive into the submissions and the expectations for the week. As we dive into the materials this week, we're going to start to apply some of these concepts, some of these theories to a real world situation, if you will, as we look at ourselves or look at others in our lives in terms of how we might adjust or cope with challenges that we endure in everyday life. And having a good understanding of your personality structure, as well as maybe others around you, will really help you to effectively negotiate some of these challenges when they come up. And by the way, it's never a question of if they're going to come up, but more of a question of when they're going to come up. As I've had a couple of challenges hit me today, it's like, okay, well, these things just happen. I adjust and make some changes so that I can overcome these issues. And so think about this as you're going through the materials this week and you talk about things such as understanding the way different personality styles may cope or adjust with some of these challenges. Those are some of the things that you're going to want to start to hone in on as you work on the submissions this week. And so 2 chapters in the textbook this week, chapter 12 and chapter 13, as we're talking about those stigmas that you've heard related to personality disorders. We're going to start to look at clinical applications of personality disorders and things of that nature. Cluster A, cluster B, cluster C. If you don't know what those mean, you certainly will as you progress. There's a kind of diagnostic classifications, but a lot of times they have some negative connotations, and there's certainly a difference between normal and abnormal personality, as we'll get into some of the materials this week. You're also going to take a look at some of the stressors and how they might impact individuals, and how having a good understanding of how you might react to some of these stressors or others will certainly make or break in terms of understanding or interacting with different personalities. And so this is a great week to learn quite a bit about yourself along the way. Some great concepts that will be talked about in the readings this week, learning objectives here, clinical domains in terms of diagnostics, in terms of personality disorders, as we're overcoming some of the adjustments or challenges that we have. Again, 2 chapters of reading, and there was no outside reading that I noted this week, but you're certainly probably going to do some research in terms of developing your projects this week, and so you'll be on your own, but utilize some of the resources that we've looked at over the last couple of weeks will help you greatly. And again, if you've done a nice job on your submissions up to date, you're completely on track to do well on the project this week, or rather first project this week. And so when we get into the journal this week, we're going to talk about the flexibility that you might have as an individual, or how you can overcome stressors in your life. And this is an opportunity for you to look at some of the things within yourself. Having a better understanding of yourself will certainly, again, help you to interact with others, but talk about these things related to the big 5 personality assessments we all did. Was that like 2 weeks ago? And so again, take some of these concepts that you're learning about in the class, tied into your individual results, to talk about how you might handle some of these things or struggles that you might have in regards to negativity. Gang, there is a tremendous amount of stuff going on out there that is negative. And so how are you coping with this? How are you managing this stuff as it hits you, related to what you're learning about your own individual personality? Now, as I talk about some of these things where it says 2 to 3 sentences, gang, be thinking 3 sentences. I cannot stress this enough, because what a number of students come in and do is they'll do something along these lines where it explains to what extent you value flexibility in yourself. And sometimes students have a tendency to start their response is, I value being flexible in my personality because of a lot of stressors in life. And then they go on with one more sentence and they stop. Okay, that is really a generic response. If you start out your response by restating the question and then you write one more sentence, it's really not a deep response. So be thinking 3 sentences, maybe 4, probably don't need to go over 5. A little bit of validation for your statements will go a long way, particularly if it's not common information, which some of you are doing a lot of putting some information in there that really should be cited, and it's not. So make sure you're up on that, and make sure that you're using primary and secondary sources. Now, as we move forward on the bigger submission this week, which is the Project 1 submission, please, please, please do not put this off until the weekend before you crack a book or get started working on your Project 1 submission. This is something that you should read through and review this week so you're clear on the expectations, get your questions answered, go through some of the materials that you've put together over the last few weeks, some of the articles that you've done, and pull together some of that information to help you develop your submission for this week. And so one of the things you're going to be doing is applying some of these concepts to yourself or another individual. Now, it's certainly okay for you guys to do it. By the way, I'm the only one who reads it. And so it's an opportunity for you to do a little self-exploration if you choose. But you certainly want to identify who the individual is and talk about some of the reasons and rationales as to why you're doing this exploration, if you will. You want to talk about this from a theoretical perspective, applying some theories to particular insights you do, talk about different components within the theory. And you notice here that it says 6 to 10 sentences. What do I always say? Be thinking toward 10 sentences, which is about 2 paragraphs per section. I want you to put this into perspective. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 paragraphs would be somewhere in the range in APA formatted, about 3.5 to 4 pages of content. It's not a huge amount of content, but make sure you're giving it the time and attention it deserves. Don't come in and start restating the question to do your response and then come up with about 5 sentences beyond that and call that good, because it won't be enough. If you're utilizing the research properly, meaning you're taking the information from what you gleaned in the research and you're applying it to your observations, you're validating what you're saying, then this will be much easier for you. And gang, what I always tell students is, don't try to reinvent the wheel. I always wonder why students choose the hard way in utilizing research as opposed to making things a little bit easier. Okay, for example, components of personality theory, including but not limited to traits, behaviors, motives, or defense mechanisms. If you just read an article that talked about some of these things related to your personality type or your traits, why wouldn't you just use the information that is readily in front of you to answer the question? Dramatic pause. Okay? All I'm saying is utilize just the research. Okay, if you've read 3 or 4 articles in preparation to do this, you have a ton of information in front of you, you utilize just that information to address the questions, then clearly you have the resources to cite your information and validate your arguments. It's that simple. It really, really is, gang. Utilize the primary and secondary sources that I've stressed throughout this course. Don't get sloppy and go to the open internet and just start asking the internet to answer questions for you, but actually apply the information from the research. It will help you. And the more that you do this, the easier it will become. And guess what? You'll be completely on track for graduate school because you're going to be doing that a lot. So make sure you're putting the time in. Start this assignment early. You'll be happy you did. And so with that, as always, if you have any questions, if anything comes up this week, don't hesitate to reach out. No discussion board this week. So good thing. But that also suggests to me that most, if not all, students should be complete with their journal no later than Thursday night. You got a pocket of time, gang. You usually have that concrete reinforcer in place that you have to be active and posted by Thursday. You've got to do your replies. That's gone. So if you're not done with your journal submission and have that submitted by Thursday night, you're honestly behind. So make some adjustments, get on top of your coursework. If you need any help, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a fantastic week. I look forward to seeing your submissions.